The lobby of the Thompson Hotel echoed with the ghostly remnants of its once bustling past. Jack Thompson stood amid the dusty furniture, a heavy silence pressing down on him like a thick fog. The chandeliers, once sparkling with light, now hung low and dull, their beauty dimmed by layers of dust that had settled over the years. He ran a hand along the cracked wooden counter, feeling the rough texture beneath his fingertips, a reminder of the countless guests who had passed through its doors. Each scuff mark on the floor told a story of laughter and celebration, but now the only sound was the soft creaking of the building settling around him. Jack's heart ached as he gazed around the empty space. This hotel, once a beacon of hope for travelers and locals alike, had become a monument to his failures. Bad investments and a sudden downturn in tourism had led him to the brink of bankruptcy. As he leaned against the counter, memories flooded back. Weddings held in the grand ballroom, families gathered for reunions, and the cheerful chatter that once filled the air, all of it felt like a distant dream, something he could almost touch but never grasp again. "What happened to you, old friend?" he murmured to himself, the words barely a whisper in the stillness. He could almost hear the echoes of laughter, the clinking of glasses, but now all that remained was the relentless march of time and the weight of impending doom. As he turned away from the lobby, Jack's eyes caught sight of an old photograph hanging crooked on the wall. It was a black and white image of the hotel in its prime, flanked by bustling streets and smiling faces. He shook his head, fighting back the wave of nostalgia that threatened to engulf him. "It's just a building now," he said, his voice thick with sorrow. "Just bricks and mortar." With a heavy heart, he made his way to the back office, where a stack of bills lay waiting for his attention. Each envelope felt like a noose tightening around his neck, a reminder of his failures. He sank into the worn leather chair, its creaks filling the silence as he rifled through the papers. The numbers blurred together. He could barely focus on the contents, overdue payments, notices of foreclosure, and desperate warnings from the bank. A sense of hopelessness washed over him. "Jack, you've got to do something," he muttered under his breath, running a hand through his graying hair. "You can't just let it all slip away." But what could he do? Each idea he had tried had fallen flat, each plan a desperate grasp at a fading dream. Outside, the chill of the evening air seeped through the cracked windows, and he could hear the faint rustle of leaves in the wind. The town had changed too. Once a vibrant hub of activity, it now felt like a ghost of its former self, with shuttered shops and empty streets. Jack sighed, feeling the weight of despair settle on his shoulders like a heavy cloak. Meanwhile, in a nearby alley, Clara shivered against the cold, her thin coat doing little to shield her from the biting wind. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to generate some warmth, but it was futile. The night was unforgiving, and the streets offered no solace. Clara was a woman in her late 30s, her face marked by hardship and a weariness that ran deep. She had lost her job at the local diner just weeks ago, a casualty of yet another round of budget cuts. "Just one more thing," she whispered to herself, a bitter smile crossing her lips. Just one more thing to add to the pile. Her life had become a series of unfortunate events, each one more crushing than the last. First, it was the job loss, then the eviction from her tiny apartment. Now she found herself wandering the streets, searching for a place to escape the cold, her heart heavy with despair. Clara had always been proud, fiercely independent, and the thought of asking for help felt like a bitter pill to swallow. Yet, as the temperature dropped, desperation clawed at her throat. She had seen the lights of the Thompson Hotel from a distance, its silhouette a haunting reminder of better days. It had once been a refuge for weary travelers, a place of warmth and comfort, but now it loomed like a ghost in the night, its windows dark and unwelcoming. "Maybe they'll let me in," she thought, glancing at the building with a mix of hope and trepidation. "Just for one night." With a deep breath, she made her way toward the entrance, her footsteps echoing in the stillness of the night. As she approached the door, she hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. The hotel looked abandoned, but she could see a glimmer of light flickering inside. With a surge of determination, She pushed the door open, the creaking sound reverberating through the empty lobby. Clara stepped inside, her breath catching in her throat as she took in the sight of the dusty furniture and the faded elegance that still clung to the space. Jack, hearing the door creak open, looked up from his papers and froze. There, standing in the doorway, was a woman he had never seen before. Her hair was disheveled, and her clothes hung loosely on her frame, but it was the look in her eyes that struck him, an expression of exhaustion mixed with a flicker of hope. "Can I help you?" Jack asked, his voice gruff from disuse. Clara looked around, her gaze flitting over the remnants of the hotel's former glory before settling on him. I'm sorry to bother you. I saw the lights. I was hoping... Is there any chance I could stay here for the night, just one night?" Jack's heart softened at the sight of her. He could see the desperation etched on her face, the way her shoulders hunched as if carrying the weight of the world. For a moment, he considered the consequences of allowing a stranger into the hotel, especially when it was officially closed. But then he thought of the cold, the danger lurking outside, and a pang of sympathy surged within him. "Look, I know it's not much," he replied, gesturing toward the empty lobby, "but I can't just leave you out there." "Thank you," Clara breathed, relief flooding her voice. She stepped further inside, the warmth of the hotel enveloping her like a comforting embrace. Jack hesitated, still unsure of what he was doing. "Just for tonight, okay? I can't promise anything beyond that," he warned, though the words felt hollow in his throat. Clara nodded vigorously, her eyes shining with gratitude. "That's all I need. Just one night." As Jack led her to a small room at the end of the hall, he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter would change everything. He doubted it would make a significant difference in his life. The hotel was still on the brink of closing, and he was still facing the specter of bankruptcy. But for the first time in a long while, he felt a glimmer of something unexpected, a flicker of hope igniting in the darkness. "Welcome to the Thompson Hotel," he said, forcing a smile as he opened the door to her room. "I hope you find it comfortable." Clara stepped inside, her heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you truly. You don't know what this means to me." As she settled into the room, Jack lingered in the doorway, watching her with a mix of curiosity and concern. He couldn't shake the feeling that Clara was more than just a homeless woman seeking shelter. There was a story behind those tired eyes, a depth that intrigued him. But for now, all he could do was offer her a place to rest. "Just let me know if you need anything," he said, his voice softer now. Clara turned to him, a small smile breaking through her weariness. "I will. Thank you, Jack." As he closed the door behind him, Jack felt a strange sense of purpose begin to stir within. Maybe, just maybe, he could help her in some way. And in turn, perhaps she could help him find a way out of the darkness that had consumed his life for too long. Clara stepped into the small room, her heart swelling with gratitude as she closed the door behind her. The warmth enveloped her like a comforting embrace, a stark contrast to the biting cold outside. She took a moment to let her eyes adjust to the dim light, the soft glow of a single lamp illuminating the modest furnishings. The room was small, but it had a certain charm. An old wooden dresser, a bed with a lumpy mattress covered in a faded quilt, and a small window that offered a glimpse of the darkened street below. As she sat on the edge of the bed, memories flooded her mind, each one a reminder of the path that had led her here. Clara closed her eyes, allowing herself to reflect on the life she once had. She had been a promising chef, her culinary talents recognized in a bustling city restaurant. The joy of creating art on a plate had ignited a passion within her, a passion that felt so far removed from her current reality. But the whirlwind of bad choices and toxic relationships had unraveled her dreams, leaving her adrift and unmoored. With a shaky breath, she opened her eyes and glanced around the room. It was a temporary refuge, but it felt like a lifeline. The solitude offered her a chance to gather her thoughts, to sift through the wreckage of her past and contemplate the future. She thought of Jack, the hotel owner who had shown her kindness when he had every reason to turn her away. There was something in his eyes, a flicker of empathy, that resonated with her own struggles. Perhaps in this quiet space she might find the strength to confront her demons. The following morning dawned bright and crisp, light streaming through the window and illuminating the room in a warm glow. Clara awoke with a sense of purpose, the remnants of her restless night replaced by a burgeoning hope. She quickly washed her face and ran her fingers through her hair, trying to shake off the remnants of her past. It was time to take charge. She made her way to the lobby, where Jack was busy wiping down the dusty front desk. He paused, looking up as she entered, his expression a mixture of surprise and warmth. "Good morning, Clara. Sleep well?" "Better than I have in a long time," she replied, a genuine smile breaking across her face. "Thanks for letting me stay here." Jack shrugged, a hint of embarrassment creeping into his demeanor. "It's just a room. You needed it more than I do right now." Clara's heart ached at his modesty. "Still, it means a lot to me. I want to help out if I can." Jack raised an eyebrow, skeptical but intrigued. "Help out? This place is a mess. I don't know how much help you'll be with all this dust and, well, despair." A chuckle escaped Clara's lips, lightening the atmosphere. "You'd be surprised what I can do with a little elbow grease. Besides, I can't just sit around and feel sorry for myself." Jack studied her for a moment, the lines of worry etched on his face softening. "All right then, let's see what you can do." With renewed energy, Clara rolled up her sleeves and joined Jack in his efforts to clean the hotel. The two of them worked side by side, dusting surfaces, sweeping floors, and laughing over shared stories of their struggles. "Believe it or not, I used to love cleaning," Clara confessed as she wiped down the windows. "It was therapeutic for me. I could think clearly while scrubbing away the grime." Jack paused, leaning against the wall with a bemused smile. "I can't say I've ever thought of cleaning that way. For me, it's just a reminder of how far I've fallen." Clara turned to him, her expression serious. "But isn't that the point? To see how much we can rise from it? You're here, still fighting. That has to count for something." He stared at her, the weight of her words hanging in the air. "You're right. I've been so focused on the loss that I forgot about what's still here." They continued working, the rhythm of their movements creating a comfortable silence between them. Clara felt a sense of camaraderie growing, a bond forged in shared hardship. She could see the flicker of hope in Jack's eyes, a glimmer that perhaps the hotel could be more than just a crumbling relic of the past. But as they finished cleaning, the moment of levity was shattered by the harsh ring of Jack's phone. He stepped away to answer it, his face falling as he listened intently. Clara busied herself with a few last-minute touches around the lobby, but the tension in the air was palpable. Jack's brows furrowed deeper with each passing moment. "Yeah, I understand," he said, his tone clipped. "No, I can't promise anything right now. Just give me some time." He ended the call and turned back to Clara, a storm cloud of worry hanging over him. "That was the bank. They're reminding me about the impending foreclosure. Jack," Clara interrupted, her voice steady but soft. "What does that mean for you?" "It means that unless I can come up with a miracle in the next few weeks, I'll lose this place. Everything I've worked for, gone." She could see the fear in his eyes, the weight of his financial troubles pressing down on him like a lead weight. "I didn't mean to pry, I thought maybe we could brainstorm some ideas together." Jack shook his head, a bitter smile tugging at his lips. "I appreciate the offer, Clara, but it's complicated. I don't even know if I can keep the lights on, let alone fix this place up." A moment of silence hung between them, the air thick with unspoken words. Clara felt a surge of determination. "But you still have this hotel. You still have a chance to fight. Maybe we can find a way to bring people back." Jack's eyes narrowed, curiosity peaked. "How do you mean?" "I don't know yet, but I have some ideas. It won't be easy, but we could try to organize an event, something to draw the community in, let them see the hotel in a new light." Jack considered her words, the gears in his mind visibly turning. "An event, huh? It might be a long shot, but He hesitated, weighing the risks. Maybe it's worth a try. Clara smiled, a feeling of hope igniting within her. Let's do it, Jack. Together. With the spark of an idea igniting between them, Clara felt a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time in a long while, she believed in the possibility of change, not just for herself, but for Jack and the hotel as well. As they began to brainstorm ideas for the event, both Clara and Jack felt the heavy weight of their pasts lift, if only for a moment, as they stepped toward a brighter future, hand in hand. Clara stood in the lobby of the hotel the next morning, a mixture of excitement and apprehension swirling within her. The dust motes danced in the sunlight streaming through the large, cracked windows, illuminating the remnants of Jack's once thriving business. She had spent the night thinking about how she could help Jack bring the hotel back to life, and she was ready to share her idea. "Jack," she called, her voice echoing slightly in the empty space. She found him behind the front desk, sifting through a stack of papers that looked more like a mountain of despair than anything else. He looked up, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Yeah, Clara." His tone was weary but attentive. "I've been thinking," she started, hesitating as she gauged his reaction. "What if we host a community event? You know, something to bring people in, attract some locals and tourists." Jack leaned back in his chair, skepticism etched across his face. "A community event? Clara, this place is barely standing. I don't think that's the answer." But Clara pressed on, her determination igniting a spark of hope within her. "I know it sounds crazy, but what if we offer free food, maybe some music? People are looking for reasons to come together, especially in times like these. If we can get them in the door, they might see what this place can be again." He studied her for a moment, the gears in his mind turning. "And what makes you think they'll come? We're in the middle of nowhere, Clara. It's been years since anyone came to this hotel for anything other than a pit stop." "Exactly, they've forgotten what this place can offer, but we can show them," Clara insisted, her eyes shining with conviction. "I can cook. I can make dishes that will remind them of home. And you can share stories about the hotel. People love nostalgia. It could work, Jack." Jack sighed, a part of him wanting to dismiss her enthusiasm, but another part, the part that recognized how far he'd fallen, found himself intrigued. "I don't know." "Just think about it," she urged, stepping closer. "What do you have to lose? You're already losing the hotel. This could be a last-ditch effort." As Clara spoke, Jack felt something shift within him. He remembered the joy of hosting guests and the laughter that used to fill the hallways. Maybe, just maybe, this plan had merit. "All right," he finally said, his voice low and uncertain. "I'll consider it. But we need to get the place cleaned up first." A grin broke across Clara's face. "Let's do it!" They spent the day working side by side, dusting off tables, sweeping the floors, and rearranging furniture. Clara was surprisingly resourceful, her energy infectious as she hummed a soft tune, and Jack found himself caught up in her enthusiasm. They shared stories, their laughter echoing off the walls, transforming the oppressive silence into something lighter. "Do you remember the last time this place was full of life?" Jack asked, leaning against a polished bar counter. "I think it was during the summer festival. Must have been 5 years ago." Clara nodded, her eyes bright with imagination. "I can almost picture it. Families gathered, children running around, music playing. It sounds beautiful." "It was," Jack said, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. "I remember seeing people enjoy themselves, sharing meals and creating memories. It feels like a lifetime ago." "Maybe we can recreate that feeling," Clara suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. "You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be welcoming." Jack looked at her, her determination shining through the dust and weariness of the hotel. "You really believe we can do this?" "I do," she replied, her voice steady. "If we work hard and believe in it, I know we can make this place a home again. If not for us, then for the community." As they continued to clean, Jack felt a flicker of hope grow within him. Clara's optimism was like a balm for his troubled soul, and he wanted to believe her words. The idea of a community event began to take root in his mind, blooming into something that could potentially save him from his impending bankruptcy. The days flew by as they prepared for the event. Clara became a whirlwind of activity, transforming the kitchen into a makeshift culinary workshop. She spent hours experimenting with recipes, her laughter filling the air as she recounted stories of her past, igniting Jack's curiosity about her life before the hotel. "Jack, you have to try this," she exclaimed one afternoon, holding out a spoon filled with a rich, aromatic soup. He took a cautious sip, and his eyes widened. "Wow, Clara, this is incredible. What is it?" "Just a little something I whipped up," she said, her cheeks flushing with pride. "It's a family recipe. I used to make it for my kids." Jack's heart sank at the mention of her children, unaware of how deeply that loss affected her. "You have kids?" Clara nodded, her expression turning somber. "I did. A long time ago. Life, it has a way of changing things, doesn't it?" He could see the pain in her eyes, but chose not to press further. Instead, he focused on the soup, savoring its warmth. "You should make this for the event. It will remind people of home." "Absolutely," she replied, her smile returning. "And we can also have some live music. I know a few local musicians who might be interested." "No." Jack raised an eyebrow, surprised. "You really have this all planned out, don't you?" "I just want to give this place a chance," Clara said softly. "And you too." The day of the event arrived, and Clara was a flurry of activity. She wore a simple but elegant dress, her hair pulled back neatly, and Jack couldn't help but notice how much she had transformed the hotel. Colourful banners adorned the walls, and tables were set with mismatched chairs that added a charming touch. As the sun began to set, the hotel slowly filled with townspeople. Jack stood behind the front desk, a twinge of anxiety twisting in his gut. Laughter and chatter filled the air, and he couldn't help but watch as Clara moved among the guests, her warmth radiating like sunlight. "Jack, come meet everyone," she called, gesturing him over. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward, mingling with the crowd. To his surprise, he found himself enjoying the connections he made, sharing stories and rekindling old friendships. "Remember when this place hosted the town's annual Christmas party?" An older woman reminisced, her eyes sparkling with nostalgia. "We had the best time." Jack smiled, feeling a sense of pride swell within him. "I remember. It was a magical time." As the evening unfolded, a sense of hope blossomed in Jack's chest. The sound of laughter, the aroma of Clara's cooking, and the joyous atmosphere filled the hotel, like a long-lost memory coming back to life. But as the night wore on, the weight of his impending foreclosure loomed over him like a storm cloud. He couldn't shake the reminder of the bank's threat, the ticking clock of his financial despair. Still, amidst the laughter and joy, he found a glimmer of hope. Clara's presence and their collaborative efforts had ignited something within him that he hadn't felt in years, a sense of purpose. As the first notes of music filled the air, Jack looked around the bustling room, his heart swelling with gratitude. Despite the uncertainty of the future, he knew that for this moment they had created something beautiful together. As the event progressed, the atmosphere inside the hotel shifted from mere survival to vibrant life. Laughter filled the corners of the once dusty lobby, and the clinking of glasses reverberated against the walls, echoing the joy and camaraderie that Clara had ignited. The faint aroma of roasted garlic and fresh herbs wafted through the air, drawing guests toward the kitchen where Clara was showcasing her passion for cooking. Jack stood at the edge of the gathering, watching her with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. Clara, clad in an apron that had seen better days, was animatedly explaining the dish she had prepared. A rustic ratatouille bursting with colors and flavors. "It's all about the fresh ingredients," she insisted, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "You can't rush the process, you need love and patience." She expertly mixed the vegetables, each slice and stir a testament to her dedication. Jack noticed how the guests leaned in closer, captivated not just by the food but by Clara's infectious spirit. He marveled at how, in such a short time, She had transformed the hotel from a mere shell of its former self into a place of warmth and connection. He had been so consumed by his worries that he had failed to recognize the potential of this place, until Clara had arrived. "Jack, come over here," Clara called, waving him over with a flourish. "I want you to taste this." Reluctantly, he stepped forward, feeling a bit out of place among the crowd. "Me? Are you sure?" he replied, a hint of hesitation in his voice. "Of course, you can't run a hotel without knowing what's on the menu," she teased, her laughter ringing through the room. As he took a bite, the flavors exploded in his mouth. "Wow, Clara, this is incredible," he exclaimed, surprised by the depth of taste. "You have a real gift." Clara beamed, the warmth of his praise washing over her. "Thank you. She paused, glancing at the guests who were now eagerly awaiting their turn to taste. "I just want everyone to feel at home here. That's what food does, right? It brings people together." At that moment, Jack realized that Clara was not just a homeless woman he had taken in. She was a catalyst for change, a beacon of hope in his dark times. Her presence transformed the hotel into a hub of community, and he felt a flicker of optimism begin to grow within him. However, the joyful atmosphere was abruptly interrupted when the door swung open, revealing a man with a rugged demeanor and a tense expression. Greg entered the hotel, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on Clara. The laughter and chatter faded as an uneasy silence settled over the gathering. "Clara!" he called out, his voice low yet commanding. Jack's heart raced as he stepped forward, instinctively placing himself between Clara and the intruder. "Who are you?" he demanded, his protective instincts kicking in. "I'm someone who knows Clara," Greg replied, a smirk playing on his lips, "and I think she knows me too." Clara's expression shifted from surprise to fear, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. "Greg, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I came to take you home," he said, taking a step forward. "You don't belong here with these people. They don't know you like I do." Jack felt a surge of anger at Greg's words. "She doesn't want to go anywhere with you," he asserted, standing firm. "You need to leave." Greg's smirk faded, replaced by a glint of menace. "You think you can protect her? You have no idea what she's been through. I do." Clara flinched at the mention of her past, and Jack cast a concerned glance her way. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with urgency. Greg leaned back against the doorframe, crossing his arms. "Let's just say I was there when Clara lost everything. I was the one who picked up the pieces, or rather, the one who made sure she was too broken to pick them up herself." "Stop it!" Clara shouted, her voice breaking. "You don't know anything about me anymore." "Don't I?" Greg challenged, stepping closer. "You think you can just erase the past? You think these people will accept you for what you really are?" Jack sensed the tension in the air, the way the guests shifted uncomfortably, their eyes darting between him and Greg. He needed to defuse the situation before it escalated. "Clara is not your property," he stated firmly, locking eyes with Greg. "She's a person with a future, and she deserves to be treated with respect." Greg's expression hardened, and for a moment Jack feared that the confrontation would turn physical. "Respect? You think she deserves respect after what she did?" he shot back, his voice rising. "Enough!" Clara interjected, stepping forward with newfound determination. "I'm not that person anymore. I'm trying to build something here, something good. You don't get to decide my worth." Jack felt a swell of pride at her words. Clara was standing tall, reclaiming her power in front of the very man who had tried to take it away from her. "Leave her alone, Greg," he warned, his voice low but resolute. "This isn't your place anymore." Greg's eyes narrowed, and for a moment Jack thought he might lash out, but instead he let out a harsh laugh. "You think you can protect her? You have no idea what I'm capable of." With one last glare at Clara, he turned on his heel and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. As the echoes of the door faded, Clara collapsed into a nearby chair, her face pale and shaken. Jack rushed to her side, kneeling down to meet her gaze. "Are you okay?" he asked, his concern evident. She nodded slowly, though the tremor in her hands betrayed her. "I'm fine. I didn't expect him to show up here." Jack took a deep breath, trying to steady his own racing heart. "I'm sorry you had to go through that. You're safe here, Clara. I won't let anyone hurt you." She looked up at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Thank you, Jack. I didn't think I would ever feel safe again." The weight of their shared moment hung in the air, a fragile bond forged in the heat of confrontation. Jack squeezed her hand, feeling the warmth of her presence grounding him amidst the chaos. "You've done so much for this hotel, for the community. You're not alone in this anymore. We'll face whatever comes next together." Clara smiled faintly, the corners of her lips lifting despite the storm of emotions swirling within her. "I never thought I'd find a place where I could belong again. Thank you for believing in me." As the guests slowly resumed their conversations, the air began to lighten. Jack realized that while the threat of Greg loomed over them, there was a strength in their unity, a resolve that had taken root in the heart of the hotel. Together they would face whatever shadows lurked in Clara's past, turning those shadows into stepping stones for a brighter future. The atmosphere in the hotel was tense following the confrontation with Greg. Clara sat on the edge of the bed in her small room, her fingers nervously twisting the hem of her sweater. Jack stood by the window, his back to her, staring out at the darkening sky. He could feel the weight of her gaze, the unspoken questions hanging in the air. Finally, he broke the silence. "Clara," he said, his voice low but firm, "you don't have to face this alone. Whatever it is, we can tackle it together." Clara took a deep breath, her heart racing. It was time to reveal the truth that had been buried beneath the surface for too long. "Jack," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "there's so much you don't know about me. The reason I ended up on the streets, it's complicated." He turned to face her, his expression softening. "I want to know. I need to understand what you've gone through." He stepped closer, signaling his willingness to listen. Clara hesitated, her past swirling in her mind like a storm. "I was once a successful chef," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I had dreams, a thriving career. I was happy, but then I met Greg." She paused, the name itself sending a shiver down her spine. "He was charming at first. He made me feel special. But soon, things changed." Jack's brow furrowed with concern as he listened intently. "What do you mean changed?" Clara took another deep breath, summoning the courage to share her painful journey. "He became possessive, controlling. I lost my job because I couldn't focus. I was too busy trying to keep him happy, trying to avoid his anger. I thought I could fix him, that I could make him love me again." Jack clenched his fists, the anger bubbling within him at the thought of Greg's manipulation. "You were trapped." "Exactly," Clara said, tears welling in her eyes. "I lost everything. My job, my home, my self-respect. I tried to leave him several times, but he always found me. It was like I was caught in a web of lies and fear. After I finally broke free, I thought I could rebuild my life, but it's been hard. I've made mistakes, and I ended up homeless." Jack took a moment to process her words. The pieces of Clara's story began to fit together, revealing a woman who had fought through tremendous adversity. "You're strong, Clara. You survived all of that. That takes more courage than most people have." Clara wiped away a tear, grateful for his understanding. "But I'm scared. Greg is back. I don't know what he wants, but I can't go back to that life." Jack's expression hardened, his protective instincts flaring. "You won't have to. You're safe here, and I won't let him hurt you again. We'll figure this out together." A flicker of hope ignited in Clara's chest. "Jack, I don't want to be a burden. You have your own problems, and I—" "Stop," he interrupted, his voice steady. "You're not a burden. I've been drowning in my own troubles, but you've brought a light back into my life. Let's help each other. Clara felt a warmth spread through her, a sense of belonging she hadn't experienced in years. Okay, together then, she said softly, a small smile breaking through her worries. The conversation shifted as Jack's entrepreneurial spirit took hold. What if we turn this place around? If we're going to face Greg, we need to be strong. I want to invest in a restaurant and event space. You could be the chef. Your cooking is incredible. Really? Clara's eyes widened in surprise. Absolutely, Jack replied, enthusiasm bubbling in his voice. We can create a place for the community to gather, to celebrate. You have so much talent, it would be a waste not to share it. Clara felt the weight of his belief in her. But what if it doesn't work? What if we fail? Jack stepped closer, his gaze steady. Then we learn from it. But I have a feeling that if we do this together, we'll succeed. You've already helped me see that there's still hope. We just need to take that leap. The idea took root in Clara's mind, her heart racing at the prospect of reclaiming her passion for cooking. Okay, let's do it. Let's plan this out. Great, Jack grinned, the tension in the room dissipating. We'll start by cleaning up the kitchen and brainstorming menu ideas. I've got a few contacts who can help us with the renovations. As they began to discuss their plans, Clara felt a sense of purpose returning. This was her chance to build something new, to redefine her life. But just as excitement filled the air, a shadow loomed over their newfound hope. Days later, as Clara and Jack worked tirelessly to prepare for the restaurant's opening, the atmosphere shifted. Clara was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables with focused determination, when the bell above the hotel door jingled ominously. She looked up, her heart dropping as she saw Greg standing there, his gaze dark and predatory. Clara, he called, his voice smooth but laced with menace. Jack instinctively stepped in front of Clara, his body tense. What do you want, Greg? He demanded, his tone challenging. Greg smirked, unfazed. Just wanted to have a little chat with my old friend. Clara, you know we have unfinished business. You can't just walk away from me. I'm not yours anymore, Clara said, her voice steady despite the fear bubbling inside her. Really? Greg stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. You think you can just start fresh? I'll expose your little secrets, and everyone will know who you really are. Jack's fists clenched at his sides, his protective instincts flaring. Leave her alone, Greg. She doesn't owe you anything. You're the one who took everything from her. Greg's smile widened, an unsettling glint in his eye. And what are you going to do about it? You think you can shield her from the truth? You don't know anything about her past. Clara felt the weight of Greg's words, but she refused to let fear consume her. You're wrong, Greg. I'm not afraid of you anymore. I'm building a new life, one you can't take from me. Jack stepped forward, his voice firm. You need to leave, Greg. If you come back here, I'll make sure the authorities know about your harassment. Oh, threats now? Greg chuckled darkly. This isn't over, Clara. I'll be watching you. With that, Greg turned on his heel and strode out of the hotel, leaving a tense silence in his wake. Clara felt a mix of fear and anger bubbling inside her. She turned to Jack, her expression fierce. I won't let him take this from me. I won't go back to being afraid. Jack nodded, his gaze filled with determination. We'll face this together. You're not alone anymore, Clara. I promise you that. As they stood together in the dimly lit kitchen, Clara felt a renewed sense of strength. For the first time in a long while, she believed in her ability to fight back. She had a partner, a friend, and a chance to reclaim her life. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, ready to build a future, free from the shadows of the past. Jack stood in the dimly lit lobby of the hotel, his fists clenched at his sides as he faced Greg, the man who had reappeared like a dark cloud over Clara's newfound hope. The tension crackled in the air, a palpable force that made it hard for Jack to breathe. Greg leaned casually against the reception desk, a smirk plastered across his face, as if he relished the discomfort he was causing. "Look at you, Clara," Greg taunted, his voice dripping with condescension. "You think you've escaped me? You think this little hotel is going to save you? I know your secrets, and I'm not afraid to share them." Jack stepped forward, feeling a surge of protectiveness for Clara, who stood a few paces behind him, her eyes wide with fear. "You need to leave, Greg. You're not welcome here," Jack said, his voice steady but laced with an underlying fury. He felt a fierce desire to shield Clara from the man who had once controlled her life. "Oh, I'm just getting started," Greg replied, pushing himself off the desk and taking a step closer to Jack. "You think you can play the hero? She was nothing before me. I made her who she is today. Without me, she's just a nobody." "Clara is not a nobody," Jack retorted, his voice rising. "She's a survivor. You don't know anything about her." Clara, trembling slightly, finally found her voice. "Greg, please just go. I'm done with you. I'm not afraid anymore." Her words hung in the air, a declaration of her newfound strength, yet Greg's laughter echoed ominously in the lobby. "Not afraid? That's rich," he scoffed. "You think you can just erase your past? It doesn't work that way. I can tell everyone the truth about you, Clara. You think these people care about you? They'll turn on you the moment they find out who you really are." "Enough!" Jack shouted, stepping between Clara and Greg. He could feel the weight of looming danger, the threat hanging over them like a storm cloud ready to burst. "If you don't leave right now, I'll call the police." Greg's expression shifted, the smirk faded, replaced by a glint of malice. "Go ahead. I'm not afraid of them. You think they'll believe you over me? I've got friends in high places." He turned to Clara, a sinister smile creeping back. "You'll see, Clara. You'll come crawling back to me before long." Before Jack could respond, a voice cut through the tension. "Everything okay here?" The sound of approaching footsteps announced the arrival of Officer Martinez, a local cop known for her no-nonsense approach. She had been patrolling the area when she received a call about a disturbance. Greg straightened, his bravado faltering for a moment. "Just a misunderstanding, officer," he said, his voice suddenly smooth like oil. "I was just leaving." "Are you?" Officer Martinez replied, her gaze sharp as she assessed the situation. "Clara, are you all right?" Clara nodded, though her heart raced in her chest. "I'm fine. I was fine until he showed up." Jack glanced at Clara, then back at Greg, who was now shifting nervously. "He's been threatening Clara," Jack said, his voice steady but urgent. "You need to do something." Officer Martinez moved closer to Greg, her stance firm. "I need to ask you to step outside, sir." Greg hesitated, casting a wary glance between Clara and Jack. "This is ridiculous," he said, but the authority in Martinez's voice left him with little choice. "You can't just—" "I can and I will," she interjected, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Come on, let's go." As Greg walked toward the door, he shot Clara one last look, a mix of anger and disbelief. "You think this is over? You'll regret this," he spat, before stepping outside into the cool night. The door swung shut behind him, and Clara let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Officer Martinez turned to Jack and Clara, her expression softening. "You two okay?" "Yeah," Jack replied, his heart still pounding. "Thank you for coming. I didn't know what else to do." Clara looked up at Jack, her eyes brimming with gratitude. "You stood up for me. I didn't think anyone would do that." "Of course I did," Jack said, shaking his head. "You're not alone in this anymore. We're a team." Martinez raised an eyebrow. "I'll need to take your statements. We take threats seriously in this town." Clara nodded, feeling a rush of relief wash over her. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of safety. "I want to do that. I want to make sure he doesn't come back." Jack placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll get through this together." As they provided their statements, the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. Clara felt lighter, as if a heavy weight had been lifted off her shoulders. Officer Martinez left, promising to keep an eye out for Greg and take appropriate action. When the door closed behind the officer, Clara turned to Jack, her expression serious. "I can't believe he's gone. I thought he would always be a part of my life. haunting me. Jack smiled gently at her. He doesn't have to be. You're stronger than you realize. You have a chance to start fresh, and I'm right here with you. Days passed, and the atmosphere in the hotel shifted. The once dark corners seemed to glow with potential, and the sound of laughter filled the air as Jack and Clara worked tirelessly to launch their new restaurant. They brainstormed ideas, painted walls, and cleaned every inch of the hotel, transforming it into a bright and welcoming space. One afternoon, as they prepped for the grand opening, Clara looked around the hotel lobby, now bustling with activity. "Jack, can you believe we're actually doing this? It feels surreal." Jack paused, wiping sweat from his brow. "It feels right, Clara. You've poured your heart into this place, and it shows. The community is ready for something new." Clara smiled, her heart swelling with hope. "I never thought I'd have a chance like this again. This hotel, it's more than just a business. It feels like a home." As the grand opening approached, excitement buzzed in the air. The small town rallied behind them, and word spread quickly about the new restaurant and event space. Clara's cooking was a hit, and Jack's vision for the hotel began to take shape. When the day finally arrived, the hotel was filled with townspeople, laughter, and the aroma of Clara's delicious dishes. Jack watched as Clara moved through the crowd, serving food and sharing stories. She radiated joy, a stark contrast to the fearful woman she had been just weeks before. "Jack!" Clara called, weaving her way through the crowd. "Can you believe this? Look at all these people!" He grinned, his heart swelling with pride for both her and their accomplishment. "It's incredible, Clara. You've created something beautiful." Just then, a familiar face caught Clara's eye. It was Officer Martinez, making her way through the crowd. Clara rushed over to her, a smile lighting up her face. "Thank you for everything, officer. I really appreciate your support." Martinez nodded, her expression warm. "I'm just glad to see you thriving, Clara. You deserve it." As the night continued, the energy in the hotel was infectious. Jack and Clara shared glances filled with understanding and encouragement. They had both emerged from their pasts, stronger and more resilient than they had ever imagined. With the restaurant flourishing, Jack's financial troubles began to fade, and he found purpose in helping others who had faced similar struggles. Clara, too, emerged as a symbol of resilience, proving that even the darkest past could lead to a brighter future. As the last guest departed, Clara and Jack stood in the now empty lobby, the echoes of laughter still lingering in the air. "We did it," Clara said, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "We did," Jack replied, a smile on his face, "and this is just the beginning."